In the serene town of Renton, nestled near the shores of Lake Washington, a disquieting event unfolded in April of 2010. 19-year-old Kettie Chau vanished without a trace, leaving the community in a state of bewilderment. Law enforcement swiftly initiated a search, yet all efforts to locate the young woman proved fruitless. As the investigation progressed, a series of peculiar details began to surface, casting a shadow of suspicion over the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. Initially, Kettie's parents exhibited an unusual reluctance, denying officers access to their home and withholding her personal belongings. This behavior raised eyebrows and fueled speculation. Adding to the intrigue, the new girlfriend of Kettie's former boyfriend was seen wearing the missing girl's shoes, a bizarre twist that deepened the mystery. The question remains, can the authorities unravel the enigma surrounding the fate of the 19-year-old? Nestled amidst breathtaking natural beauty, this haven is a true paradise for children, where adventure awaits around every corner. Hiking trails wind through the landscape, inviting exploration and discovery. A strong sense of community thrives here, with neighbors readily offering a helping hand, creating a warm and supportive environment. It's an ideal place to raise a family, where bonds are strengthened and memories are made. Like many towns across the United States, since the early 2000s, this place has also seen a rise in the fascinating pursuit of biohacking. This innovative approach focuses on optimizing the body's functions through cutting-edge technology, personalized nutrition, targeted training, and a range of other methods. The goal? To sharpen cognitive abilities and promote graceful aging, allowing residents to live their lives to the fullest. Biohacking has found its stride in the modern era, capturing the curiosity of a growing number of individuals. However, many enthusiasts find themselves searching for credible avenues to deepen their understanding. The course is designed not only for doctors, fitness coaches, sports program instructors, nutritionists, cosmetologists, bloggers, and psychologists, but also for those eager to explore fresh avenues for personal growth. Crafted in collaboration with instructors from the first Sechenov Moscow State Medical University, a venerable institution with a rich history and a faculty where over 85% boast advanced degrees, the program promises a robust educational experience. During the course, you will learn. Embark on a journey to understand the intricate physiology and biochemistry of the human body across different life stages. Delve into the foundations of biohacking and explore groundbreaking research in nutrition, uncovering how optimal nourishment impacts the quality and length of life. Upon completing this comprehensive program, you'll earn a professional education diploma from the prestigious Sechenov First Moscow State Medical University and a professional retraining diploma from Skillbox. Equipped with this expertise, you'll be prepared to establish a thriving private practice or collaborate with clinics and other healthcare professionals, building a stable client base and earning between 50 and 300,000 rubles monthly. As a bonus, a year of English language training and 2 supplementary courses are included. On the morning of April 19, 2010, a tranquil town was shaken by tragedy. Police were alerted to the disappearance of 19-year-old Kettie Chau. Her parents, Henry and Debbie, were distraught, having last seen their daughter the day before. At 7 in the evening, she had informed them she was going for a walk. With nothing but her phone in hand, she ventured out. Her parents, after some deliberation, had given her their blessing. Hours drifted by, yet Ketty didn't reappear at home. As the clock struck 9 in the evening, Mr. Chau's worry grew, and he tried calling his daughter, but his calls went unanswered. Around 9:30, a message finally arrived on his work phone. It was Ketty, explaining she was at the mall with friends and promising to be home soon. That night, she never made it home. Ketty was a student at Lindbergh High School in Renton, known for her friendly nature and diverse group of friends. She shared an exceptional bond with her parents, who had left Taiwan almost 2 decades prior. Mr. and Mrs. Chau had immigrated to the United States with the aspiration of building a better life for themselves and their daughter. The morning of April 19th, a sense of unease washed over Ketty's friends when she didn't show up at school. A worrying thought crept in. Something was clearly amiss. They tried to shake off their fears, desperately hoping that everything was all right. Detectives understood that modern technology held the key to finding the missing woman. Their initial step involved obtaining a detailed phone record, hoping it would illuminate Ketty's recent contacts, the phone's location, and perhaps Ketty herself. While awaiting the phone records, the detectives interviewed Ketty's husband, Mr. Chau, about her social circle. They learned that Ketty had a wide array of friends, a lifestyle her father hadn't approved of. Mr. Henry Chau confessed that he disliked many of her acquaintances and their activities. In his opinion, they should have stayed in Taiwan. One particular friend captured the detective's interest. 20-year-old Elu Otkins, known as Zico by his friends, had a past that included a brief relationship with Kettie Chau. As is standard procedure, the police looked closely at those closest to the victim, and Ketty was no exception. She and Zico had dated for a few months. He was 2 years her senior. They met in high school, their connection forged within the familiar orbit of shared acquaintances. Zeke seemed like an average fellow, and by all accounts, their relationship was a good one. Ketty would often say that everyone has their share of problems, but she loved him regardless. The police located Zeke and brought him in for questioning. He told them that they had been seeing each other for approximately 3 months. The detectives were keen to discover if he harbored any resentment towards Ketty. Zeke maintained that he and the girl were good friends, though he admitted that the breakup had been difficult for him. Soon after the split, Zeke began dating Ketty's friend, Jamie Marlowe. It wounded Kathy deeply. That moment marked the end of their friendship. Zeke had broken her heart. During the interrogation, the detectives observed a palpable anxiety in the young man. Kathy's disappearance clearly troubled him. Then, Zeke offered a curious detail. He believed Kathy had a new boyfriend and earnestly wanted to assist the detectives in locating him, as he suspected she might be with him. However, Zeke confessed he didn't know the man's name. Detective work unearthed a crucial detail. A mysterious young man had begun a relationship with Ketty mere 2 or 3 months before she vanished. The detectives pressed Zeke, inquiring about his whereabouts on the evening of Ketty's disappearance. Zeke revealed that he had been at the home of a friend, John Carpenter. He had arrived in the evening, and the pair spent the entire night immersed in video games. Intriguingly, John was also acquainted with Ketty, as they were all students at the same school. Zeke then made a further admission, stating that Ketty had sent him a message that very evening. She suggested a rendezvous, but he declined, citing prior engagements. John Carpenter was summoned to the precinct by the police, seeking to corroborate Zeke's account. John clearly stated that he had neither seen nor spoken to Ketty that particular evening. He further affirmed that Zeke had remained at his place throughout the night, not venturing out at all. Undeterred, the detectives proposed that Zeke undergo a polygraph examination, which he passed with flying colors. With the successful completion of the test, the officers dismissed all suspicions surrounding Zeke. Subsequently, the detectives revisited the Chau residence, intent on gathering further evidence and piecing together the sequence of events. Ketty, a frequent internet user, prompted detectives to seek access to her laptop, hoping to uncover potential romantic interests or relationships that might shed light on her disappearance. An official request was made to Mr. Chau to enter the residence and collect Ketty's laptop, along with any relevant items from her room that could offer clues. Surprisingly, Mr. Chau denied the request, hindering the investigation. Despite expressing a desire to find his daughter, he refused to cooperate with the detectives. This uncharacteristic behavior, contrasting with the typical openness of parents in similar situations, raised suspicion among the investigators. The detectives wondered if crucial details were being concealed from them. Behind closed doors, secrets often lie in wait. It was the 21st of April, 2010. For 3 long days, the police had been tirelessly searching for Kettie Chau. The detectives requested access to Katie's computer from her parents, but to their surprise, they were met with resistance. Initially, Mr. Chau insisted on taking the computer to a friend, claiming this acquaintance could examine it and provide them with answers. The detectives tried to persuade him, arguing that handing it over to their specialists would save valuable time in the investigation. Henry remained stubbornly silent, withholding his consent. Likewise, Chau refused entry to the officers. This air of secrecy immediately put the detectives on edge, fueling their suspicion about what the pair was hiding. Without access to Ketty's computer and her room, the investigation was stalled. While her friends might offer some insights, Ketty's life was primarily online, and that's where they needed to begin. All investigations grind to a halt without access to vital information. Consequently, the detectives summoned Chau for questioning, hoping to break through the wall of silence. They requested that they undergo a polygraph examination. Mrs. Chau voiced her inability to complete the lie detector test, which heightened the detectives' suspicions. Subsequently, the police interrogated Gendry. He consented to the examination, but was highly emotional throughout. He wept and repeatedly mentioned his daughter. Due to his profound distress, he was unable to adequately answer the questions. The polygraph results only deepened the detectives' intrigue. Mr. Chau's examination proved inconclusive, typically an indication of failure. However, in this instance, Mr. Chau was visibly distraught, leading to repeated interruptions during the test. The question lingered. Was this a consequence of his grief over his missing daughter, or did a more concealed truth underlie his reaction? In pursuit of answers, the police extended their investigation to Mr. Chau's neighbors, hoping to glean insights into the family's life and potentially uncover crucial details that the polygraph couldn't reveal. They were, it turned out, intensely private individuals. Neighbors whispered stories of never being invited inside their home. Even Ketty's closest friends had never crossed her threshold. Only immediate family were ever granted entry. Detectives began to realize the Chau's were apprehensive about cooperating, having never dealt with law enforcement before, and as immigrants, they were likely uncertain of their rights. Perhaps, above all, the Chau's were fiercely protective of their privacy, guarding their personal lives from outside intrusion. From their earliest years, a seed of distrust towards the police had been sown in their hearts, growing into a deep-seated fear. This apprehension was brought to the forefront when Ketty's mother voiced her refusal to undergo a polygraph examination. The date of the test, unbeknownst to the detectives, was scheduled for Ketty's birthday. Understandably, the mother was distraught at the thought. The mere idea of it led to a firm denial. She knew, deep down, that she would inevitably fail. A polygraph, after all, is a machine that delves into the hidden depths of one's emotions. The Chau's were consumed by immense grief over their daughter's disappearance, making it impossible for them to undergo any tests, especially on her birthday. Any test results would have been inconclusive, rendered unreliable by the overwhelming emotional turmoil they were experiencing. A polygraph administered to Davy in her distraught state would have yielded nothing of value. The more detectives interacted with the Chau's, the more they grasped the depth of their sorrow and understood that they were not attempting to conceal anything. Once the detectives explained the situation, it became clear that the parents were not trying to hide anything. Consequently, suspicion was officially lifted from Henrietta Davy. With the Chau's cleared of any involvement in Katie's disappearance, the detectives resumed their search for other potential suspects. By April 22nd, Henry Chau finally delivered the long-awaited piece of evidence to the police. Khan handed over Katie's laptop, which the forensic expert meticulously examined, revealing its digital secrets. Chau also granted the detectives access to her room. In the lab, the forensic team unraveled Katie's hidden online life. The analysis revealed that Ketty was registered on several dating sites, simultaneously engaging in conversations with multiple men. At the time of her disappearance, she was actively corresponding with 8 individuals. Ketty had a fondness for guys and frequently talked about them. She possessed a genuine fondness for meeting new people. Perhaps a touch naive, as many 18 or 19-year-olds often are, she approached the world with an open heart. A background check on 8 recent suitors of Ketty revealed information that gave the police cause for alarm. At least one of them had a history of assault. Then the printout arrived. Ketty's phone had last pinged on April 18th at 9:48 p.m. But it was the next detail that truly chilled them. The detectives pored over the printouts, the last confirmed sighting of Ketty placing her in Boulevard Park, a well-known hangout for teenagers. From that point, Ketty's trail went cold. The investigators surmised Ketty might have arranged to meet a suitor in the park. Perhaps she went there, anticipating a rendezvous with one of her admirers. And he murdered her. 2 weeks had elapsed since the disappearance of schoolgirl Kettie Chau from a suburb of Seattle, Washington. Detectives had only identified 8 individuals with whom she'd been in contact online. These 8 people were of great interest to the police. Were any of them romantically involved with Ketty? Did any harbor a motive to harm her? They located all 8 and summoned them to the station for questioning. Detectives interrogated them one by one. They needed to ascertain how long each had known Ketty and if they had ever met in person. 2 of them had a history of assault. Every detective underwent a polygraph examination. A chilling thought lingered. Was one of them the killer, or did someone among them hold the key to finding Ketty? Meanwhile, search teams meticulously combed through the park, the last known location where Ketty's phone signal flickered. Police deployed dogs, hoping their keen senses would lead them through the dense terrain to where Ketty's phone once was. It was a marshy, overgrown area, forcing investigators to rely heavily on the dogs' instincts. However, their efforts yielded nothing. The polygraph results from the lodgers at Ketty's residence left the detectives in disbelief. Every single one of them had passed the test. Baffled, the police were forced to release them all, one by one. The detectives had been banking on at least one of the lodgers showing signs of deception, but their investigation had hit a dead end. Meanwhile, Ketty's friends refused to give up hope. They plastered the neighborhood with flyers bearing her picture and created a dedicated page on social media to spread awareness. Moreover, the determined group personally searched for her in the park along Boulevard Lane, combing every corner in their desperate attempt to find her. They came up empty-handed. Not a single clue, not even a trace of where she went. It was as if Ketty had simply vanished into thin air. Desperate, the detectives set up a hotline, hoping to generate some leads. Calls poured in immediately. One woman was almost certain she'd spotted Ketty in a passing car, yelling and seemingly drunk. But that sighting turned out to be a false alarm, a case of mistaken identity. The police chased down countless similar leads, each one proving to be frustratingly difficult. The investigation into the disappearance dragged on, miring the detectives in a seemingly inescapable dead end as the weeks turned into months. Doubts began to creep in, gnawing at their resolve to uncover what had befallen Ketty. Then, in the spring of 2011, a year after Kettie Chau vanished, her friends noticed something unsettling. Jamie Morelos, Ketty's former boyfriend, had begun wearing high-top sneakers with laces. The style and color were eerily familiar, almost identical to a pair Ketty had been seen wearing on several occasions. A chilling realization dawned upon Ketty's friends. The sneakers belonged to her. But the question that hung heavy in the air was, why was Jamie wearing them? Ketty vanished. Why would anyone wear her shoes? The whole thing felt deeply unsettling. Months later, on the 22nd of June, a frantic call reached the police from an anonymous high school girl. She urgently requested to meet and speak with Giovanni Candelario, known as Gio to his friends. She claimed he held the key to Ketty's disappearance. Gio arrived at the station and delivered a stunning revelation. He claimed to possess a crucial thread that could potentially unravel the mystery for the detectives. "May we record this conversation?" they inquired. "Please, proceed," he responded. On June 23rd, police located 21-year-old Gio Candelario and summoned him to the station. "How did you know Kettie Chau?" they pressed. "We were introduced through a mutual friend, Aiden, and I believe we attended the same class at school," Gio explained. He further stated that he had been living with John Carpenter for the past 2 years. During Ketty and Zig's courtship, their place became a frequent haunt. We would often hang out, deeply engrossed in video games. All our school acquaintances and friends gravitated towards his place, spending countless hours there. The police questioned Gio about Ketty's disappearance, seeking any clue. Do you recall that particular evening? I was absorbed in a video game, utterly lost in its world. And then Zig arrived, his presence instantly shifting the atmosphere. Around 1 or 2 in the morning, or perhaps it was later, I remember Zig stumbling in, covered head to toe in mud. It was disconcerting, especially given that Ketty was last seen near Boulevard Lane Park. "What happened?" I asked him, my voice tinged with concern. He simply stated that he had been off-road biking. Gio found it unsettling. A few days later, I stumbled upon a missing person report online. Ketty had vanished, and a frantic search was underway. 14 months prior, during police questioning, John Carpenter hadn't once uttered Gio's name. The detective also found it peculiar that Gio was coming forward only now. They pressed him, questioning why he hadn't contacted the authorities from the start, emphasizing how suspicious it seemed. "Why didn't you tell us about this a year ago?" they inquired. At first, I didn't pay much attention. It was only after a long while that I began to notice significant changes in his behavior. Gradually, Gio started to pick up on Zig's increasingly unrestrained actions. He was stealing things and becoming more aggressive towards his friends. He had begun to act like a real beast. We questioned him, wondering what was wrong. He had changed drastically, and we hadn't anticipated such a transformation. The revelation struck me like a thunderbolt. Gio's claims were met with skepticism by the detectives. They suspected his testimony stemmed from a personal vendetta fueled by a fractured relationship with Zeke, driving him to seek retribution through the police. Their suspicion was palpable. To corroborate Gio's account, the police summoned John Carpenter, his neighbor, for questioning. "Let's revisit the night Katie vanished," the detective began. "Do you recall the events of that evening?" Initially, Gio had asserted that he and Zeke had been engrossed in video games throughout the entire night. His subsequent words, however, sent a chill down the detective's spines. "You stated Zeke arrived at 7 in the evening and stayed with you throughout the night?" one inquired, his voice laced with suspicion. "Yes, I believe so," the witness replied, a flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. "Perhaps it was merely a dream," another detective suggested, probing for a weakness in the narrative. "I often experience vivid dreams," the witness countered, a hint of defensiveness creeping into their tone. "I cannot be entirely certain if it truly occurred or not." And with that admission, alarm bells began to ring loudly in the minds of the investigators. Zeke didn't stay with him the whole night, a stark contrast to John's statement to the police a year prior, which he now dismisses as a mere dream. It was a claim few were willing to accept. The detectives, sensing an opening, intensified their pressure on the group of friends. "I know what you did to her," one of them asserted, his voice laced with accusation. The interrogation tightened its grip. "So, you saw her then?" A reluctant admission. "Yes," hung in the air. The inevitable question followed. "Did you argue?" He was a tremor personified, his entire being vibrating with an unseen force. Suddenly, something snapped within him, and he seemed to break free from an invisible restraint. It was July of 2011. Detectives were questioning 2 of Kettii Chau's closest friends about the night she vanished. Joe claimed she had seen Zeke, disheveled and with mud-caked shoes, not far from the woods. John Carpenter, hesitant and uneasy, reluctantly corroborated her account. His footwear? Do you happen to know what he was wearing? Some kind of sneakers. Sneakers, you say? Following the initial investigation, the police secured a warrant for Zeke's phone records and brought him in for questioning. The interrogation was led by none other than Detective Grack Barfield, a seasoned veteran of the Major Crimes Unit. Having spent time reviewing the case file, I found certain inconsistencies and felt the need to bring everyone back in for a second round of questioning. The detective pressed Zeke to recount his whereabouts on the evening of April 18th, 2010, the night his ex-girlfriend vanished. "Around 5 or 6 p.m., I headed over to a friend's place," Zeke began. "We were just hanging out, playing video games." "And when did you leave?" the detective inquired. "I didn't," Zeke replied, meeting the detective's gaze. "I stayed there the entire night." The detective leaned forward slightly. "I see. And who else was present that evening, besides you and your friend? Zeke stated flatly, I stayed at John's all night. It was the same alibi he'd offered a year before. The detectives pressed him for details. Tell us about your communications, Detective Barfield began, his gaze unwavering. Did you speak with Kate that evening, the night she disappeared? She texted me, the man replied, his voice barely a whisper. Said she was going for a walk. Barfield slid a printed sheet across the table. This is Kate's phone record from April the 18th, the day she went missing. High-precision geolocation data places you both together. He paused, letting the information sink in. In the marshy park nestled between your house and your friend's place, his partner chimed in, records show that both Kettie Chau's and your phone, Zequiel Otkins, placed you in that park on Lane Boulevard around 8 p.m. a year ago. Upon hearing Greg Barfield's statement, a visible shock rippled across Mr. Otkins' face, as if he had been struck. In that instant, the detective knew he was looking at a guilty individual. I inquired if you saw her at that time. Yes or no, he pressed. After a pregnant pause, Mr. Otkins conceded with, well, perhaps I did see her. The detective followed up. So, you admit that you saw her? Zeke finally confessed to meeting Katie in the park on Boulevard Lane. He had kept it a secret because they had been arguing. Their quarrel, Zeke explained, stemmed from his relationship with his new girlfriend, Jamie Marlowe. This revelation enraged Katie. Were you angry? The heart hammered a frantic rhythm against the ribs, a wild drumbeat accompanying a surge of raw emotion. Tempers, already frayed, reached a breaking point. The argument spiraled, twisting and contorting into something uglier, darker. Then Ketty saw the glint of steel. A knife materialized in Zeke's hand. A line had been crossed, a point of no return reached in the heat of the moment. The knife. A cold comfort, a silent promise of safety carried close. Walks become less fraught, the shadows less menacing. It all started, Zeke confessed, with a fight, a desperate struggle over that very blade. In a flash of fury, Katie seized it, leaving Zeke with a bleeding lip and a simmering resentment. Even after 15 long months, the scar remains, a stark reminder etched onto his face of the night the knife came between them. She slashed at me with a knife. In the following moments, it was lodged in her throat. I believe I accidentally thrust it there. Was she dead? Yes. Afterward, Zeke asked John Carpenter to help bury her. He needed a shovel. Did he ask for one? Yes, he did. And then he helped dig a hole. How deep? He gestured, indicating the desired depth. He lowered it into the pit. Yes, that was it. Zeke claimed it was a tragic accident, but the detectives suspected something far more sinister. They believed Katie was murdered. They relentlessly questioned John Carpenter about that fateful evening, seeking definitive proof. Today, during interrogation, Zeke confessed to me he was responsible for Katie's death. He also implicated you, stating you aided him in digging the grave. Yes, it's all true. The air crackled with tension as John Carpenter's explanation hung heavy in the room, leaving the seasoned detectives reeling. I don't know, he finally mumbled, his gaze distant. My mind was blank. I just watched him. A long silence stretched, punctuated only by the hum of the fluorescent lights. He's my friend, John continued, his voice barely a whisper. I couldn't let him down. On the 8th of July, 2011, John Carpenter, driven by a force unseen, agreed to lead the authorities to Katie's final resting place. He stopped at a secluded spot, the weight of his secret etched on his face. It's here, he declared, his voice hollow, the unspoken words echoing in the space between them. The following day, the forensics team unearthed a body. It was confirmed later by Tapsia to be, indeed, Kettii Chau. The autopsy report revealed numerous stab wounds across the body, and the victim's throat had been slashed. Detectives concluded that this was no accident. It was a brutal murder. When the police informed Zeke they had discovered the body, he made a startling admission. Did you intend to meet with her in order to kill her? They inquired. Yes, he confessed. How long did you contemplate the plan before carrying it out? A couple of days, he replied. He admitted he wanted to get rid of Ketty because she made problems for him and his relationship with Jamie Marlew. Detectives later uncovered that the messages sent to Henry, in which Ketty claimed she was going to the mall with friends, were fabricated. Zakil Lotkins was the one who sent these messages after the murder had already occurred. The perpetrator also confessed that, after killing Ketty, he took her sneakers as a souvenir, carrying them in his backpack before giving them to his girlfriend. Jamie Marlew later stated she was too afraid to contact the police, fearing she would be the next victim. Ultimately, she faced no charges in connection with the case. Zig Lotkins, as he was known, pleaded not guilty at his trial on July 26, 2011. But the jury saw through his facade, sentencing him to 20 years behind bars. John Carpenter, on the other hand, avoided a similar fate by agreeing to testify against both Zakil and cooperate with the authorities. The revelation that Kettii Chau had been dating even knew her killer was a chilling realization. He turned out to be far worse than she could have ever imagined. How could Zig have been capable of such a thing? J.O. Condelario was nowhere to be found. He was meant to cherish Ketty. Instead, he committed the ultimate betrayal, stealing her away from everyone who loved her.